Yay! Hi, everybody.
Welcome. We're so happy to see you and each other.
Yay! We've been hanging out in the green room laughing about some stuff that maybe we'll share with you here in a second. We're also today going to try to keep track. There's something funky about the chat feature. Do chat. We're trying to it keeps automatically going off. We want everybody to see what's being said. So give us a heads up if that it just keeps turning off. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's up with that. So hi, welcome. We'll dispense with all of that. We're so excited to be here. I'm Arminda. Other way. There's Alicia. We're backwards.
Yes, the camera's backwards. It's Alicia here. Hey, Arminda. Hello, everybody else. Welcome.
So this is number 2 of this particular series that we're in right now. Something about what if it's your life. I think that's what we called this one. Yay! Yay for your life. And we are actually really excited about today's topic. And if you've been with us for some of our previous webinars, I actually think today will be a shocking turn of the way that we approach this topic. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I'm always open to that. But I do think it's going to be a fun discussion. What we really want to invite and encourage you to do is participate in the discussion, because that's what makes the discussion so much more fun. Otherwise, it's just me and Alicia rattling on, which we're prone to do whether you're here or not. So just jump in. All right. So, sorry, what? Yes, you with the glasses.
Me with my glasses? I know, the new update. This is my fashion statement for the week this week. I wanted to trick you all into thinking that I'm smart. So here we go. We'll see if it works.
What's funny is we didn't coordinate this. We're both wearing blue and glasses today. So lucky viewers.
Yes, hooray us. Also, at the top of each of your chat features, I believe that there is a little button that says, that has an attendee chat if you roll or scroll your cursor over it. So if you try that, perhaps you'll be able to publish to everyone. And if not, Arminda and I will work on the logistics on the back end so that next time everyone can share the love, because we love to share the love.
Yeah. Yay. So I'm not sure. I keep clicking it. Right now it's saying you can send to everyone. So we'll hopefully, it's off again. So I probably can't keep track of that. So just do message us and we'll keep everybody in the loop. But let's get started, because we've already shot 3 minutes and we know how fast we go through these things. So we're going to kick this off. I'm going to embarrass Alicia right out of the gate. Won't that be fun?
Okay. Sure.
So Alicia recently went on a date. And okay. Alicia, tell us what you normally order when you go out to eat. What do you normally like to drink? What's your favorite beverage?
I normally drink Pellegrino, my favorite water.
And what happened on your recent date when it came time to order beverages at the start of the meal?
So I'm supposed to be this empowered person and, coach who knows about all this stuff and should know better. But I go out on this date, and instead of ordering Pellegrino, which is my favorite water, I just went with tap water, because I thought, if I order Pellegrino, he's totally going to think I'm a snob. Now, here's me wanting to drink Pellegrino, but not, because I was wondering what someone else would think about that. And as a consequence, I was not able to enjoy my favorite beverage. So 2 thumbs down for that all around. Plus, as Arminda so hilariously pointed out to me yesterday, do I really want to be with someone who's going to think I'm a snob for drinking fuzzy water? So there we go.
Yeah.
This stuff is real, guys. It's real.
It's real. We're in it every day. But this is the crux of today's conversation. This is really the heart and the soul of what we want to discuss with everybody today. And that is specifically, what if it just doesn't matter what somebody else thinks? How often, how many of us, raise all your hands, because we are all guilty of this, of behaving or acting or deciding or just living a life based on what somebody else thinks, or based around fear about what we're doing, thinking, well, they're going to think this, or they're going to disagree there, or they're going to disapprove, whoever the they are. And we're going to get into all of that today. So what I'd like to see start happening over in the chat is, who's experienced this? Give me an actual real life example. It could be about a career you've selected. It could be about a school you decided to attend. It could be about a relationship that you chose to pursue or not pursue, all based on what somebody else is thinking. Now, while we're waiting for you guys to chime in here, Alicia, what do you think about this? Where does that come from? Thoughts?
Well, I think it comes from this idea and this notion. This is the behavior that we learn when we're little. This is the behavior that we're conditioned to as young kids. We want to make everybody happy around us, our parents, so that we get the things that we want and need, so that we can hang out with our friends, so that we can stay up late, so that we can, do all of those sorts of things. Only that this kind of behavior, this wanting to make everybody else happy, doesn't actually work so well as an adult, because what it ends up doing is driving us to make choices that may be pleasing to somebody else, but that make us completely miserable. And that stinks.
Yeah. Because let me ask you a question, Alicia. When you come from that place where you are behaving or acting or speaking out of fear, and I want to talk about fear, but it's from fear. How do you feel? How do you feel either in the moment and or past the moment when you look back at it? How does that feel?
Oh yeah, you totally feel, you feel like best case scenario, you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Worst case scenario, you feel sort of miserable. I mean, how many times have you agreed to go to a movie that you didn't want to see, or hang out with people who you didn't want to spend time with, or, fill in the blank sorts of things? You feel icky when you agree to do it. You feel miserable during the situation, and then you feel bad afterwards. So it's sort of like there's no winning here.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't want to live that way. I have lived that way. And sometimes I still do. I still find myself like you with the Pellegrino showing up in a way that's very disingenuous to myself. It's very inauthentic, Arminda. And it's never comfortable for me. And I'm always like that feeling of like, I just feel unsettled on my inside. And then I spend all that time and energy being frustrated with myself. And I think maybe that's another conversation. So what do? How do you get around that? Or you've talked about, okay, that comes from conditioning in childhood because it gets us what we want. I think the issue here then is we carry that behavior into adulthood or into other situations because we think that that's still going to work for us. But what I'm hearing you say is, or am I? Does it work? Do we get what we want that way?
Well, it totally does not work, and we don't get what we want. And so I'll use an example that I use often in terms of career. So we talk a lot about careers and jobs, and this is a place, especially for people who are graduating from undergraduate or an MBA. This is something that's rampant, and a lot of us, we go through these recruiting processes and these hiring processes, and we sit down from someone across the table and we do everything in our power to make that interviewer like us so that they'll extend us the job interview. What happens? So if you really do want that job and if it is a good fit for you, then there really isn't an issue. But more often than not, people interview for jobs that they don't really want, that aren't going to make them happy. So I'll use the example of banking, which is an attractive career for a post-MBA sort of a person. But most people don't actually really enjoy the activity of banking. I mean, let's be honest. And
to those of you who do,
God bless. But for those who don't, but who take the jobs anyway, who interview for the jobs, who polish themselves to get the opportunities that will look good on their resume, but that won't be at all fulfilling to them, what that sets the person up for is misery, is unhappiness. And So what happens then in the job is that at some point, even though you may be able to do it, either you're going to leave because you're unhappy, or they're going to let you go because there isn't really a fit. So that's one of those places where making decisions, based on other folks doesn't work.
Or you stay because you feel obligated then, kind of like what we discussed last week in the webinar. So I think there are three possible outcomes there. The third being that you stay because you feel trapped and obligated, because now you've got a mortgage and you've got a family that you're trying to support and you don't see an exit. So you feel like, well, this is the only option, or this is the only job, rather than expanding that. So go back and listen to last week's webinar if you want to figure out some workarounds for that. But yeah, this is interesting. It reminds me, I had a conversation with a client recently in which he was contacted by another company. And they found him on LinkedIn and they liked his profile, and they reached out to him and said, hey, we'd really like to talk with you about managing some stuff over here in our company. And he was not searching for a job. He's very happy with where he is right now. And he was telling me this after the fact. He said, but then I was kind of curious. He said, and it felt really good and gratifying that they reached out to me. So I thought, what the heck? Let me go have a conversation. And he described how he went into this conversation, which turned into, or was essentially an interview, one that he wasn't interested in. So he wasn't vying for a position. And what ended up happening is he simply showed up as himself. He spoke freely. He shared his opinion honestly. He was not trying to do something based on what he thought they might want him to do. And in the end, he was on top of the world, because he just simply showed up as himself. And he told me, he said, you know what, Arminda? He said, I don't think they were so impressed with me at the end of it because I wasn't giving them the answers they wanted to hear. I said to him, well, how did you feel? He said, I felt great. And I realized that the stuff I'm doing in my current position with my staff and with myself, as we've been going through this coaching, it's working. This is the work that I want to be doing. It's continuing to show up genuinely as me. And that feels amazing. So there was a real shift for him when he was able to see that, because he didn't have anything invested in that interview. And he was really able to identify in the past where he had kind of stepped off of that path of being true to himself in what he thought was the best interest for an outcome that he desired, when in truth, what felt the best was simply being himself.
I love that. And it's really true. And particularly in the job space, that's an area where we walk into an environment assuming that it's our job to please the other person, when actually it's always a two-way street. It's always a two-way evaluation. And we have a lot more power over what goes on, over the decisions that we make. And we can always say, even if someone offers us a job, we can always decline it if it's not something that's going to serve us or make us happy.
Yeah, let's jump out of the job sphere. Let's talk about other arenas in our lives where this behavior really shows up predominantly. Have you seen or experienced another space in people's lives, Alicia, where you see this trending?
Well, I see it trending in just about every aspect of everybody's life to a greater or lesser degree. And some things, when you're going out with your friends and, you really don't have a strong opinion about where to go for dinner or something like that, it's fine to just acquiesce and sort of agree to go along. That's, we're not saying one should be contrarian. But in interpersonal relationships, this shows up all the time. I mean, I myself had to make a really difficult call a couple of weeks ago. I was expecting a guest in from out of town, and they had already bought their ticket. They were getting ready to come, and where I was in growing my business and the flux that I've been in because I've been moving and all kinds of things, it just wasn't the right time to have visitors.
Yeah.
And so I had to, and I really grappled with this. I had to make a tough call to say, okay, will I please this person, making them happy, having them come, and completely destroying what I've been working on with my business, with sort of the stability that I've been creating for myself? Or should I just do what's going to work best for me and actually overall, although there's a little bit of uncomfortableness in having to postpone a trip, really making it better for everybody in the long term? And so I made the tough choice. So it happens in interpersonal relations and conversations and situations also all the time. I mean, how about you, Arminda? I can imagine this happening in your world too.
Yeah, I think it's all the time. It's constant. We're constantly challenged with that. And like anything else, it takes practice. It takes practice to honor you. And I'm curious, this is something that you and I have talked about, Alicia, and I'm curious what our participants think about this. I wonder sometimes, does this show up more prevalently for women than it does for men, for females versus males? And I see it happening with my daughter's friends, very young ages, as teenagers. They're right, that desire to fit in and desire to be noticed and to be accepted tends to supersede honoring ourselves. And that, that behavior at that young age, it can be really damaging. And then we continue that into adulthood. I know that is an experience that I've lived, where I was behaving and living and choosing things based on what I thought other people in my life expected of me in order to please and or satisfy tradition, culture, family values, you name it. That list can be very long and deep. And where do you go with that if you're constantly trying to please somebody else, or behaving or choosing, thinking what somebody else, thinking you know what somebody else thinks? That's a dangerous road or rope to walk anyway. And I'm not in you. I don't know what you're thinking. Yet I presume to think I know what you're thinking. Right. And now I'm basing my entire life around what I think you're thinking or what I think you want from me, rather than showing up powerfully and loving me, because there's nobody that knows me better than me. That's it. And I can take all the learning, I can take all the loving, I can take all the nurturing and the guidance that I've been given. And with that, I can make really powerful, informed decisions based on where I am at that point in my life, and be confident, go forward confidently that I'm doing the best I can with what I have right now. Or I can be fearful that I'm going to disappoint somebody else when that decision is only going to disappoint me.
Yeah. You asked where else this shows up, and I think it also shows up big time, not just for women, but also people who are introverts in general. Because especially in the US, there's such a push to be out there in the world and to socialize and to be in the group with everybody else. And I am an absolute introvert, believe it or not. I need to spend a lot of time alone. I mean, as a child, I would go out on day-long excursions with my friends, or we'd go to the mall, or the kinds of things that teenagers do. And my friends would come back ready to rock and roll and, spend more time together and hang out. And I needed to go take a nap because that was exhausting for me. So I have had to learn to say no to different things, to activities with people after I've already had a day of a lot of activities with people, because it's exhausting to me. And I've always worried, oh no, if I don't go to this event, or if I don't continue doing this, so-and-so is going to be mad at me, or they're going to be annoyed. But on the other hand, if I go to the event, not only I may be present, but I'm not going to be my sunshiny self. I'm going to be grumpy and not want to be there. So kind of, it really is better to stay home.
Yeah, I get that too. We have that in our family dynamic, myself and my daughter. We like to be home. We like to spend time alone. We like to spend time together, and we like to regroup and recharge. And the way that each of us does that is different. And I mean, everyone on the planet, the way everyone does that is different. And it's important to honor yourself, to recognize that, know what that looks like for you and feels like. And the questions that we want to ask ourselves is that really serving the purpose? Like in your example, Alacia, is it really serving my friends? Is it really benefiting the friendship, the overall friendship, for me to show up and be snarky and just go sit in a corner because I don't really want to be there in the first place? I'm not going to be very engaging. I'm not going to be very fun to be around, and I'm going to resent the fact that I spent the evening with a group of people that I genuinely love, and I did it because I was afraid that they would then turn around and judge me for not showing up. What are they now going to be looking at you like?
They're going to be judging you for being a jerk because you're there.
Yeah.
The grand irony of all of this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like, why are we making the decision? And if you're feeling uncomfortable, or that for me, it's a discomfort on the inside, I really pay attention to that and say, okay, pause. And before I just readily agree to something, I want to stop and pay attention and talk to myself, because I talk to myself a lot. And I really want to ask, why am I doing this? Is this the best thing for me right now? Can I show up in my best way to really benefit the other people in this circumstance? That's my answer.
Yes, absolutely. And yet one more place where this shows up, the message that we just got from Emma, is not doing things that you think are fun because you're worried about what other people will think. So, not throwing down a dance in the middle of a dance party because you're worried that someone will think that you dance funny, or not singing because you're worried that people will think that your voice is out of tune. Where have you seen this kind of thing show up, Arminda?
Well, again, I got it back to me because I'm an expert on me and not much else. And how many times, I mean, innumerable times where I've not maybe acted on impulse or acted in a way that I think is what I would do if I was by myself in the kitchen. Because I have dance parties all the time in the kitchen, and I sing in the downstairs bathroom, full disclosure, because I get really awesome acoustics down there. But would I just like open up and just sing in front of other people? It's a rare thing for me because I get that fear factor that prevents me, or I prevent myself, because I'm so worried about what somebody else is going to think. And in fact, we recently had a little kind of smackdown a month or two ago where we were posting some videos of us singing and dancing online. This is way, way outside my comfort zone to do that. And I posted a video of me singing happy birthday to one of my clients, and I made it live. And someone that I know made a really rude and a comment on that video feed on one of my social media channels. And my initial response to that when I read that was, it was so hurtful. It was because it was so personal. And then I just took that deep breath and I thought, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what that person thinks about my voice. What matters is what I think about my voice, and that I was willing to share it because it made a difference for the person for whom I recorded. That was it. It wasn't for everybody else. It was for me to push myself into a place that was uncomfortable, because what we fail to recognize is that everything you want is on the other side of your fear.
Yes, it really is. And I actually had a really similar experience with that, with our whole karaoke smackdown. By the way, if you follow me and Arminda on Facebook, you can check out those awesome videos there.
Oh, they're awesome.
And, so I recorded a karaoke video. I sang a little bit of Journey. I have a thing for karaoke. And I recorded it as part of a joke between me and Arminda and another good friend of ours, David Gerber. And then I sent it to our coach. Arminda and I are coached by Steve Chandler. I sent it to our coach just so he could see what I had told him about, and he thought it was so hilarious. He said, "Oh my gosh, can I please post this?" And my first reaction was, hell no. I'm too embarrassed. I kind of did this as a joke. This wasn't supposed to be public. And then I thought, you know what? Yes. Why do I care who sees me singing? And if so many people thought it was funny in our group, maybe it will bring a smile to someone else's day. And in fact, some guy from Portugal sent me a note on Facebook saying that he had seen this song and that he's in this cover band. And then we start this whole conversation. So you just never know what's going to happen.
And you never know. And speaking of Journey, hello, the new lead singer was discovered on YouTube.
Oh my goodness.
From the Philippines. Guys, actually, that is the coolest story ever. And there's a documentary about this guy on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's actually fascinating. I don't think anytime soon, Alicia and I are going to be picked up by The Real Journey to do any singing for them. But it doesn't matter what The Real Journey or anybody else thinks about us. What matters is, am I showing up in loving for myself? Am I having fun? Exactly. And that's really it. Because what's the worst that can happen? Right? Reel it back in. Like, what's the absolute worst that can happen? If somebody else doesn't like the way you sing, they're probably not going to come back and listen to the next video that you post. Okay, that's fine. That means they're not going to have access to my fun. And that's okay, because my fun is for me and it's for whomever it was intended. And what we know is from that karaoke SmackDown that we had, it actually inspired Emma, who's on the call right now. It inspired her to record her own video and post that, which was way outside of her comfort zone. And she had so much fun and discovered some things about herself too. So that's a nice result. It wasn't why we were doing it. It just happened to be a ripple effect. Again, what's most fun is just on the other side of your fear. That's what I've discovered, is if I can just break through that barrier of fear about what other people are thinking or what I think they're thinking, man, that's where all the fun happens.
It really is. And something that you and I were talking about yesterday in a podcast that's going to be published shortly is absolutely apropos here, which is this notion of getting your work and your stuff out into the world. Oftentimes when you're creating something, if it's a creative endeavor related to the arts, or if it's a creative endeavor related to your work or a product that you're building or anything really, so often we guard that creation to ourselves. We don't share it with other people because we want to wait till it's just right. We want to wait till it's perfect. And what I've discovered is, as the recovering perfectionist that I am, if you had met me 5 years ago, there's no way I would have let you into my creative process early on. But now what I've discovered is that the sooner and the faster I get stuff out into the world for other people to experience, the faster I get feedback, the more interesting ideas kind of pop up, and the more possibility I see. I have a fantastic client who is launching a clothing line right now, and she has a Kickstarter campaign that's going live in September. She's amazing. And she had a brilliant idea for inviting people into her creative process. So her company is The Willery. I encourage all of you to check that out.
She's fabulous. And Debbie, we love you.
Debbie, we love you. And she created an event. So as most entrepreneurs who are bootstrapped, so don't have a lot of extra cash laying around, but she needed to have a lot of people try on samples of the clothing that she was making, of the pants that she was making. So she created a pop-up event where people could come and try on her pants, just a fixed small set of them, and invite them into the creative process instead of waiting until the pants were perfect and getting them out there into the world. And I just think that that's brilliant, because now she has so much more feedback to work with. She has so much more insight into what customers are looking for, well before she spent all the big money to get it out there into the world. So yeah, sharing your work is another great way.
Yeah, and if we can kind of go there for whatever the creative endeavor, if we're specifically talking about creative endeavors, because we have many people on the call today, and I'm sure those who will listen after this, whatever your creative endeavor, whether it's being a better manager of other people, because that is a creative endeavor, or whether it's launching your own business, or whether it's, getting a start on Broadway, it doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, the more you share of you, the more developed you become. When we're holding back and holding ourselves in check and in reserve, the only person against whom you can test yourself is you. And you'll be shocked and amazed and delighted at the feedback that comes. You will discover how other people are actually responding to you. You'll discover things like Debbie did when she had 25 people, I don't know how many, I made up that number, but however many people come in and try on the pants, there were things she could not possibly have known before she went into that pop-up event that she's now able to make some adjustments, do some tweaking before she goes into the live production, and really expends a lot of energy and cost associated with that rollout that's down the road. And how amazing is that to be able to test ourselves against others and with others and get that opportunity as we grow. Practice creates talent. That's what Steve Chandler says. And I believe that to be 1,000% true, that practice is what creates talent. Talent isn't born. It doesn't, for a rare few, and I'm not that person. The way that we get better is by doing it. It's in the doing of the living. It's living your life. It's not listening to the fear. So how do you get past fear? What kinds of fears do you guys experience that hold you back? Be honest with you and with us right now so we can address that, and really, because I guarantee what you're experiencing fear-wise, everybody else is also experiencing. Alicia, talk to me about your fears.
Well, I'll talk to you about a fear that just happened recently, what a great example of how fear kind of blocks you and the amazing possibility that happens when you get stuff out into the world. So I'm moving into a new apartment here in New York, and I was being interviewed by the condo board of the building that I'm moving into.
Which I think is still hilarious, but go on.
And so this is a group of mostly artists. And of course, I really wanted, so my fear in this situation was them not liking me, and then them declining my application for the apartment, because this is a place that I really wanted to live. It's totally amazing. And so here I am, and the members of the board are interviewing me and asking me questions about myself and my work and what I do. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, ooh, I'm going to use some big vocabulary, and I'm totally going to impress them about how smart I am and how great I am. So of course they're going to say yes.
How could they not? Tell me what word you used. I can't wait.
Well, the word, I don't remember. What I do remember, though, is after my explanation of what I do with coaching and how I help people make better decisions for themselves about their careers, one of the guys on the board, who is an artist, a painter, he looked at me and said, "I don't understand what you're telling me." And so I about fell off my chair and laughed so hard, because first of all, here I was communicating in a way that I thought would impress them, because I was afraid that they were not going to like me and give me the apartment. And lo and behold, what would have been better is me explaining my work as though in much simpler terms, because the folks there don't operate in kind of the coaching world, or don't have as much familiarity with it. So what a swift kick in the pants of, acting in a way out of fear so that others will like me. And it kind of backfiring, at least as far as the conversation goes. Now, spoiler alert, I guess, I did get the apartment, so hooray. Despite
it wasn't too much of a deterrent, yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah.
But isn't that interesting and so common that we behave, and depending on the party or the people that are around us, we behave differently in order to impress, or in order to show up in a way that shows them what we think they want rather than, okay, what do I want? And also just acknowledging and saying, if this doesn't work out, like in your case, if they, for whatever reason, decide it's not a good fit, can we just say, okay, maybe it wasn't a good fit and there must be something better?
Right.
Rather than wrapping ourselves around an idea that we think is right and then behaving or leaning into that and being so fearful that it's not going to work out. What if we come back from that and say, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to be me. And no matter what I'd love to get this apartment, and that would be awesome. And if I don't, that would also be awesome. There must be something better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And there are so many places where this fear shows up. I think also because we imagine that there's only one alternative. So, going into that situation, the fear is coming from the place of thinking, this is the only place that I could ever possibly want to live and be happy in. And so I need an apartment now. And so, oh my God, I want this to work. And the same thing with the job search. Oh my goodness, I'm going to answer all these questions exactly the way I think that they want me to so that I get the job that I want. In relationships, I'm going to act this way. I'm going to order tap water so that this guy doesn't think that I'm a snob, so that maybe he'll like me more. I'm like, how bizarro is that, right? The fear comes from all of those places and in all of those kinds of situations, because I feel like it seems we can, from that place of fear, we can only see one or very limited opportunities. When in fact, there's multiple options out there in the world of things that could happen, and most of which we can't even imagine from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. Fear is such an interesting thing. It takes a lot of practice. I still experience fear. I will say that after practicing not avoiding fear, but facing it and really confronting it when it shows up, really maybe the better term is I challenge my fears. So I welcome them. And in a coaching conversation, it's my favorite place to start. What are you afraid of? Because I want to dive right into that. Because when we peel back that layer, there's a wealth of information about you just below the surface that's waiting to be discovered and uncovered and really exposed so that you can get past it. That's what I mean. I said, let's just confront that fear and embrace it. Don't run away from it, because remember, it's on the other side of the fear, not this side of the fear, where the fun happens.
Yeah, I love that you say that. And actually something that happened in a coaching conversation with one of my clients yesterday, someone who is afraid of taking action in creating something for their business and their livelihood for many weeks in a row. And so they were consistently not acting because they were afraid. But actually what that not acting was so they're stressed out for all of this time. The thing that they were afraid of was actually a problem that needed to be solved for, or an opportunity to create something better. And so we kind of flipped the conversation around. So fear, instead of it being a bad thing, or doubt, or something that makes you kind of uncomfortable, that intuition, instead of thinking, oh, that's bad, what if that you could sort of think like, okay, what if there's some sort of invisible panel of advisors who's showing me this fear so that I can know what to pay attention to and create a change or do something different. So what if it isn't a bad thing? Exactly like you were saying, what if it's something to be welcomed or to explore?
I love that too. Emma just said, I love that. And I want to say, I love that too. I think that's largely been my experience, is that it's more about I'm afraid of the outcome if I do it.
Yes.
That's interesting. I'm afraid of succeeding sometimes. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. And I think, and that's, everyone always talks about being afraid to fail. And what I don't hear people speaking about often is being afraid to succeed, because we don't know what's going to happen. Because if we're successful at something, what's that going to mean? More responsibility, needing to show up for life in a way that requires some more discipline or a different way of thinking that's outside of our current comfort zone. And I mean, I'll tell you, in the spirit of things that I don't want anyone to know about me, as I am building, so right now I'm working on a product and a business that's going to bring classes online to help people make better decisions for themselves about their careers. And I'll tell you that I am terrified, of it not working, and I'm kind of scared of it working, because what does that mean? How much is my life going to change? All of the kind of discipline that I'm going to need to ensure that happens in a way that works really well. Yikes! It's a whole different way of life. As I'm talking to you now, I can recognize it's a better life. It's more exciting, more engaging, and it's making the kind of difference that I want to in the world. But I would be lying to you if I said I weren't afraid of what happens if it goes well. So it's showing up now.
It's so common, and I think we don't immediately identify it, or oftentimes don't identify it as fear of success. And instead, I think we mask it and say, well, I'm just afraid it's going to fail. I'm afraid it's not going to work out, therefore, or I'm afraid that I'm not cut out for that, or I'm not capable of doing it, therefore we do nothing. When in truth, it's a fear of succeeding. It's a fear of actually making it happen, because then what? Then what do I do? What do I do with all of that? That fear of the unknown often is what's in the way. So we always want to look at that. What is the actual fear, and really peel back those layers. And I will share a recent experience. I don't want to share too many details. It's actually very, very personal, but I was recently working with my coach around a fear that was in the coaching conversation. The fear was inspired by an incident that happened with my daughter, in which I got very angry at her. And this was about a month or so ago. I got very angry at her for something seeming like very trivial. And I paid attention to that. And I was very intrigued, observing myself, like why was that such a big deal? And so I went into some self-coaching mode, which I do often, and I started making some notes, and I started doing some of my own work. And then I took that work with me into a coaching conversation. It was revelatory what came out of that conversation for me. The things that I was able to discover about myself, and how everything shifted for me because of that, because I was willing not just to keep getting angry about something trivial, but because I was willing to look at, was there something deeper here that was going on? Knowing myself, knowing that I actually don't often get angry, and that just wasn't normal for me. I really looked at that. And I'm going to flash a piece of paper up on the screen. I don't want everybody to look at it. Again, it's personal to me. But I made some notes after that coaching conversation. It was crazy. This is what came out of that for me. And it was deep stuff. Again, it's not always like deep and going back centuries kind of work, but because I was willing to look at the fear, and I wasn't afraid of what somebody else was going to think about me. My coach was going to judge me because I was yelling at my daughter. I was willing to look at that. I honestly, my life is completely different now because of that conversation. June 10th, that's when that coaching conversation happened. So just 4 weeks ago, changed my world because I was willing to look at the fear. And that's what I would invite everybody else to do. When a fear shows up, step right up to it and introduce yourself and say, let's get comfortable, and let's really take a look at who are you and why are you here?
Yeah, I like to call that making friends with the monsters.
Yeah.
When you're afraid of something, and oftentimes in my conversations with folks, I'll say, oh, I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid that's going to happen. I said, well, would you like to meet the monster in the room? Would you like to sit down and see what's going on with them? And it's so funny because once you personify whatever it is that you're afraid of in some way, shape, or form, and you kind of get to know it, all of a sudden it becomes less scary. Yeah. The same way in all the research in the world about about prejudice and eliminating anger across, country lines and racial lines and things like that. So much of it comes from sitting down with and getting to know, personifying the person who you think is outside of you, who is other. And with your fear, it's the same thing. It's the same. We try so hard to keep our fears out, and we build up so many walls to keep them away and to protect ourselves. And really, though, what happens if we invite it in? If instead of being a prohibited guest, we say, come and sit down at the table, then all of a sudden there's a face, there's a name, there's something you can interact with and discover.
And I've also discovered when I do that, the fear becomes a welcome guest in the room. I can then express gratitude for that fear and thank that fear for shining a light on something that up until then I had been unwilling to see in myself. And I become more powerful, meaning I become a better me, a stronger me that cares even less about what that other person thinks or what that situation may or may not say about me, because that situation doesn't get to decide that. I do. And so when we are willing to look at the fear, invite it in, have a conversation with it, it doesn't mean that fear now is running I've turned on the light. If we use the analogy of the monster under the bed, it's shining a light under the bed to say, okay, I see you're there. Do you want to come up and
what's up?
What's up? What's your deal? And now I know more about me than I ever could have known if I keep running away or moving further away from that fear or not acting because of it, not doing something because that fear is the one I've given control to. I've said, okay, you get to be in charge of me, rather than me saying, I appreciate your input. I appreciate your perspective, fear. Let's look at that, because I'm still going to make this decision. And fear can be such a great motivator. When you think about it, stage fright, or anyone who's a performer, there's for me, it's singing. I have no issue getting up speaking or dancing in front of a crowd, but singing in front of a group of people is terrifying to me. Yet I chose to do it. Some months ago in a group where Alicia and I were together participating, I chose to voluntarily sing in front of a group of my peers. 20 or so of us were in the room. I was terrified, and I still did it.
And it was wonderful. It was a magical moment for the group. It was fantastic.
And it was magical for me. It doesn't mean that I wasn't scared, but it means that I was the one in charge. I said, fear, come with me. Let me use that adrenaline. Let me use that in order to show up more powerfully for me. And it was me showing me I can do this. Now, next time that there's an opportunity for me to sing, I can now go back in my memory and say, I've done this before. I can do this again. So I now have history that says, I am stronger than my fears. And on the other side of that fear was an amazing experience that was full of love and acceptance in that room because I shared that song. So what we want most is always on the other side of our fear, but only every time.
Yeah, and another place where this shows up, your singing example is a great one. Another place where I think that caring what other people think and being afraid of what that perception is, and so wanting to shy away, is one of the world's most common fears, which is speaking in front of people in public speaking. Mm-hmm. And that is a situation that at least everyone who I know at one point or another has been terrified of that, whether they've gotten over it or they've learned some kind of techniques. I used to be terrified of speaking in front of groups of folks. And because I would worry, what do they think? What if I mess up? A horribly terrifying public speaking event that I did was when I first moved to Brazil and I had just learned Portuguese. When you're speaking your own language, you know a lot of synonyms. You can, if you get nervous and flustered, there are additional words that you can use.
Yeah.
But when your vocabulary is limited, there aren't. And so I was terrified because I was worried of what they would think. I was worried what they would think about my accent. I was worried about what they would think about what I was saying. And then I was worried on top of that if I got worried, that I wouldn't know enough words to actually communicate effectively. Look at all that worry mishmashed into one thing. And of course, although I was shaky and it was, I was scared, it went off fine and it worked fine. And because of that, I have exposure to a whole bunch of people who I never would have met otherwise. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's if we can get over this notion of caring so much about what other people think, get over this, because I think is kind of the main takeaway that we have here is that what other people think is rooted in fear of something. Mm-hmm. It's the magic that lies on the other side of that really can bring some wonderful things into our lives.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my daughter again and some experiences that I've observed, not necessarily with her, but just the teenage group. And if we have teenagers on the call or listening to this after the fact, if I could share anything with you, is show up, be you. One of the things that I've told my daughter a lot, and I hope she remembers always, that nobody's going to advocate for you except for you. So if you are always living in fear of what someone else thinks about you or for you or because of you, who's showing up for you? The answer is no one. You have to do that for you. And that's as true for my daughter and every other young person on the planet as it is for me and Alicia and everyone else who can hear me or who can't hear me. It's as true for us, even if you can't hear me. We have to advocate for ourselves. If I don't show up for me, nobody else is. I have my own cape and tiara. I'm already wearing it. I got to show up. And if I'm so worried that somebody else is going to judge me or be disappointed in me or be whatever, unhappy with a decision that I've made or a place that I've gone or a speech that I've presented, then it wasn't for them, was it? It was only always for me. So make sure that however you're choosing, ask that, is this for me? Does this allow me to get closer to my vision and my version and my dreams that I'm trying to create? Or am I trying to live out somebody else's vision of who they think I should be? Your choice.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I had an experience where what you just shared was absolutely applicable. So I went back to my former high school and had the opportunity to talk to some students in the theater program there, which was fantastic. It was a delightful visit. And one of the things I talked about was not caring what other people think, was exactly this topic on this call today. And what was amazing is that afterwards, a group of girls came up and said to us, or said to me, so what do you do to stop caring what other people think? How did you learn to do that? And I think it's what Arminda is saying, first and foremost, this notion of you being the only one who's going to be your own advocate and recognizing how much power you actually have, which is exciting.
Yeah. And
the second thing is this notion of being able to create, this notion of being able to bring something forth into the world because you are who you are in only the way that you can be. And how much fun is it to bring stuff into the world that is truly solely yours, and just practicing it. And then the third thing I think is having this sitting down conversation with fear. And instead of building up a wall and pushing it out, welcoming it in and saying, "What's up, man? Like, how you doing?
I want to hear you. What's your voice?" And
Yeah,
like, it's information. It's just information. That's all.
exactly.
Doesn't make it true. It's just information.
Right on.
And I'm remembering something. Gosh, we have 5 minutes left. Let's talk fast. So yesterday when Alicia and I were talking about this topic in preparation for today's live discussion, I was reminded that for my whole life, I've been told when it comes to interpersonal relationships, especially with men, and I might ask or be in conversation with someone, why does anybody never ask me out, or why am I not in a whatever relationship? And the response universally has always been, well, Arminda, I think you just intimidate guys, and they're just really intimidated by you. What I want to say to that for anybody else, and especially women who have ever experienced that or heard that response, stand up. Be you. I sure as hell don't want to be in a relationship with any man who feels that I intimidate him. I just want to be me. And I want to be with someone and share myself with someone who finds joy in being with me, not who finds a sense of or needs a sense of superiority over me. So remember, order the sparkling water if that's what you want. Order your iced tea, Lindsay. Order what it is that makes you happy. Advocate and show up from you.
I love that. I think that's time for a mic drop. And as we're wrapping up today, we want to thank you all for coming and for being here and sharing this amazing conversation with us. Yet one more week of awesome happened this week, and we're going to be back same time, same station next week. We are thrilled to continue on to the third part of this 3-part series. And we hope to see you there live. What else, Arminda?
Invite your friends, share the message. It's not too late to join in. These are all free anyway, and they're going to be up on our website. If you haven't been to our website, please join us over there. It's whatifamazing.com. And you can sign up to get our updates. There's a sign up thing on the homepage there, and all of our classes are available. You can download these, listen to them later, access them on video and or audio, whatever's working for you. So let us know. Make sure you do the exit survey that helps us know how this was for you, what else you'd like to see and hear and participate in the future. We appreciate you. We love you. We're grateful for you. And what if you all show up again next week and bring a friend? What if that would be amazing?
Exciting times, I think. What if exciting times?
Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
This is fantastic. Thanks, guys.